I didn't have an intention to become a monk. I'll stay in a monastery and learn meditation for about a year and see what happens. The monk was telling me that he's a good meditator and you can see the future. And it's not broken. I'm like, oh yeah. It's useful.
This is the Sala, the meditation hall at Wat Buddha Dhamma, a Thai forest tradition Buddhist monastery located a few hours north of Sydney. I've long been interested in meditation and Buddhism, having sat 4 silent meditation retreats and also served 4 times at Goenka Vipassana centers. I came here to learn more about the Thai forest tradition, which I was drawn to because of its adherence to the early teachings of Buddhism, as well as its emphasis on meditation practice. I stayed here for about a week, completely free of charge, as is tradition in Buddhism not to charge money, but to operate on a basis of dana, or generosity or donation. On entering the Sala, one sets out their mat and cushion, and then bows 3 times to show respect and to recollect the triple gem of the Buddha, the Dhamma, that being the teaching in this context, and the Sangha, the community of monks, nuns, and lay practitioners.
My name is Ajhan Khemavaro. I am the Abbot of Wat Buddha Dhamma.
Prior to becoming a monk, what were you doing?
I was a stockbroker, so worked mostly in finance and banking in Los Angeles and Bangkok.
What led you to become a monk?
I met up with Buddhism when I was in Thailand working, so we went to the monastery. And with most things, it just happened by chance, really. I had a friend who ordained as a temporary monk, and he was pretty bored, so he asked me to come and keep him company. He only lasted 2 weeks. He couldn't get out of it fast enough. He was really bored, he said.
But you liked it?
Yeah, so I had a taste, I liked it, so I thought, well, that's interesting. But I didn't have an intention to become a monk. I'll stay in a monastery and learn meditation for about a year and see what happens. The monk was telling me that he's a good meditator and you can see the future. And it's not broken. I'm like, oh yeah. It's useful. That's such pure intention. But over time, when you had a bit of peace, then you're like, yeah, I don't really need anything else.
How long have you been a monk now?
Been a monk since end of 1999.
Oh, wow.
24 years.
What would you say is the pros and cons of being a monk?
There are no cons, just pros.
Just pros?
Well, it depends. I mean, that's not to say that's easy. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges. But so much of the challenges of being a monk is internal.
Right.
We have craving, we have attachment, and of course, the monastic life will show that. And then there's no distractions. Like when you're in a bad mood, you can go turn on TV or get something to eat. So you have to deal with it. Yeah, so that's part of it. People come, obviously, stay for a while, then leave for different reasons. But I think any time that you come to a monastery to undertake the training, it's not lost.
Right.
You can apply the same training, the same teaching when you go back to the lay world. The teachings on harmlessness, teaching on restraint, teaching on generosity, that's never wrong, really.
This here is the cabin that I was staying in while I was at the monastery. It's called Family House. There's actually a few different little cabins dotted around the grounds. I shared the cabin with a couple of other lay guests who were staying at the monastery. We each had our own rooms, which was pretty cool. Generally speaking, I'm a pretty messy person, and at the monastery, this was no exception, as you can see from my room here. But it was a pretty nice, cozy little space, and I liked it though. My roommate here was a little bit off-putting at first, but he was kind of dead, so I just let him hang out there.
Alright, so what's your name?
My name's Kian.
How long have you been at the monastery?
I've been here for 5 days.
So you're here as a lay guest?
That's right.
And what brought you here?
My uncle visited the temple in September for a week, and he recommended me to come. So I've never been on a Buddhist retreat. Spent days at Buddhist temples, but never any extended period of time. So I wanted to reconnect with Buddhism. So I decided to take him up on the offer, the request to come here.
So you were raised Buddhist, sort of?
Yeah, my dad's Anglo-Christian and my mum is Buddhist. So I was raised in a household where both views were held, but I generally aligned more with Buddhism because I was more connected with that part of my family. Also involved in a lot of Buddhist temple visits and other ceremonies. Thinking back on my childhood and thinking back on my time here at the Wat, a lot of concepts that I haven't really been thinking about for probably the best part of the last decade have kind of come up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I actually remember hearing about that from my mum, from my grandfather. Things like impermanence, the non-self, nibbana. So I was raised Buddhist but never practiced until probably the last few days.
And how has that experience been of actually like practicing it?
Yeah, it's been intense. There's a lot to it, a lot more than I realized. I've always said I've been Buddhist in group discussions at university, on my dating profiles, Buddhist, but then it's like, what does that actually, I would always be like, oh, it's living a life of being generous and loving kindness, which is true to an extent, but then there's so much more to it, like learning about the Dhamma, the Sangha, the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths. Like, I didn't know anything about any of that, really. So it's been a lot of information, which was kind of, I guess, a bit daunting at the start, because everyone else seemed like they were all over the knowledge, and multiple retreats that people had been to. There was people here who have been here for 11 months, and like this was like second nature to them. But my first kind of deep involvement with a place like this, and Buddhism like as a religion rather than like a lifestyle. Being at the monastery, people like to have kind of deep chats about it, so it's like there's a lot of space to learn, not only what it is to be Buddhist and the teachings, but like what it means to them and kind of how you can use them in life as well, and like how they use it in their lives.
Alright, thank you for doing this.
No problem.
So what's your name?
Bryce. Bryce is my name.
How long have you been at the monastery?
Been here 11 months now, but I've been coming and going since 2016. I've stayed a year in the past, and I've basically stayed a year already now, so this place is a second home.
What brought you here?
What brought me here was a desire to answer some unresolved questions for myself. I knew that no time would be wasted in applying my thoughts and questions towards elders, towards the most important questions, like how to be actually at peace, how to end desire. Everyone's trying to end their own desire by acting it out. They act it out to put an end to the pressure of desire that all beings are trying to put an end to. So the question is how to do that well, for once and for all.
How do you let go of that kind of craving?
Well, you can crave and then see what does that do? How's that working out for you?
Yeah, not that well.
yeah, so they're like, okay, maybe I just, be happy I'm sitting.
What would you say are the pros and the cons of monastic life?
Well, there's a lot of pros, because it seems like, from what I've heard and my experience, a pretty relaxed place. Obviously they follow the precepts, all 8, but it seems like...
Quick side note, the 8 precepts are to abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, using intoxicants, eating after midday or before dawn, decorating the body, dancing, listening to music or other general entertainment, and sleeping on high, luxurious beds.
Especially the 6th, which is not eating after 1.
Yeah, they kind of bend that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Here we have the allowables. So, the monks and lay guests who are staying here and holding the 8 precepts, one of the 8 precepts, I think it's the 6th one, is not to eat after midday. But within the rules, monks who are sick, or I think in certain other circumstances, are allowed to have certain foods. And I think they're sort of doing one of these where they sort of squint their eyes, tell their heads, and make it so that everyone is allowed it. And within the text, it says stuff like oils and sugar or something, but it basically works out to be this, which is basically a stoner's lunchbox. And we got gummy worms, crystallized ginger, that's really good, dark chocolate, some prunes, licorice. I guess these are like some kind of Asian sweets. I haven't actually tried these, maybe I'll give them a try. So you're allowed to have those after midday. Why is it alright to have refined sugar, but you can't have bread? I know, but them's the rules.
And obviously, you're always trying to find loopholes, but I mean, as soon as you're looking for a loophole, even if you're not breaking a rule, you're breaking the principle. Once you know that it's acting out of desire, which should be feared and reprimanded, you can do something that's not technically a fault in terms of the letter of the rules. This is where self-transparency comes in. You can't rely on external set of criteria and rules, right? You have to rely on the principle of you trying to manage your suffering through acting out. That's a problem in itself.
But irrespective of precepts, the food has been amazing. A lot of guests come, because what are we, an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Sydney, so a lot of visitors from Sydney offering dana. If you're here on a weekend, you get fed very well. If you're here on a Tuesday, there's a regular Vietnamese lady who comes and feeds you very well. So you eat really well, and then obviously fast in the evening until the cheese comes out, and the chocolate, and the ginger lollies, and the lolly snacks.
Yeah, the medicinal cheese and chocolate.
That's right, yeah. So that's a pro. Obviously, it's a beautiful space. There's 2 peacocks running around, which are really nice. There's a bunch of goannas, which are kind of menacing, but they're also beautiful. We're like next to a forest. There's caves. There's like a mountain range, so it's stunning. The general vibe is really relaxed and very mindful. You can really relax and kind of reflect and contemplate on a lot of things. You're not in your general space where you live, you work, your friends are, those life stresses are. So I felt it's really awesome. You can read a lot. It's a great place to read because there's like nothing else to really kind of think about or do.
Great library too.
Yeah, great library.
The library had this section of free books that you could take away with you, as well as this main section of topics related to Buddhism and meditation, as well as this section which I thought was very cool for them to have, the wanderers of other sects. I think that's really cool that they're not opposed to exploring the ideas of other traditions and whatnot. They're not closed off or closed-minded in that way as certain other traditions can be sometimes.
And another pro is the work is good. You have a work meeting every morning at 7 and you do work for anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if it's a long job, but I feel it's quite good because you're giving back to the temple, they're obviously housing you and feeding you and all looking after you, so that feels good. Monastic life, negatives. The meditation is hard. It's really good. It's the main reason why I think a lot of people are here, but it's really difficult. We have to be at the sala, which is where we do the meditation. It's 4:30 a.m. and it's tough. It's tough getting up. It's tough just sitting there meditating. Luckily, the stream of Buddhism encourages walking meditation, which is a really nice way to break it up and actually move the legs so they don't feel like you're going to die whilst meditating, which is great. That's a massive pro, the meditation practice, but it is difficult. And then I guess the other precepts, most of them make sense, but for me personally, I found it quite difficult being with my partner and then coming here and abstaining from any sexual misconduct. Sexual conduct, full stop, that's the monastic life. But that's a good thing, it's a good thing to practice. I think that's probably the only two difficulties. I wouldn't say negatives, but difficulties.
There's so much that I love about Buddhism and about monasticism, but then there's certain aspects that just seem almost a bit weird or a bit pointless. Like, if I can say without being offensive, for instance, you have to pass the monk something for them to accept it. And from my perspective, it seems like, it's for you, just take it. What's the deal with this? I don't know if I could ordain, because I feel like every day I'd be like, this is kind of dumb.
It is from a perspective, but then these rules are laid out by the Buddha. So you respect his wisdom in the other aspect.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't make up these rules just to torture people. With the more pointless rules, it is a practice of mindfulness. Am I aware of just picking up everything and offering to his hand and not touching it again? Am I aware of that? What has been offered and what hasn't been offered? All these other OCD, whatever people call these days, it is an act of mindfulness. Where are you and what you're doing? Where is the situation? 127 rules, it is an opportunity to practice mindfulness.
The Buddha said you can get rid of all the minor rules, but they decided to keep them just to avoid criticism. There's a lot of rules that were created circumstantially at the time. Someone did something at the time of the Buddha, then made a rule that's very niche. As long as you know the principled ones, like celibacy, non-indulgence with food, stuff like that, then there's a lot of silly rules. You might just keep to avoid people complaining at you.
What would you say is the one biggest lesson or takeaway that you're going to take away and try and apply in your life?
Be present in the moment and be at peace with whatever happens, and be aware that life and all of the suffering that comes with life, whether it's small or big, that's just a part of life, and being alive and having a body and being impermanent. And I think just those three things kind of will help me. I think I really want to continue meditating, practicing and being aware of those things so I can kind of be happy, be content in the moment, because life is forever changing and it's neither good nor bad. It's what it is. So I think that's it. Great. Thanks for the interview, Mikey.
Thanks so much, Kian.
All good.
Appreciate it.